Good morning and welcome to our third annual Internet of Things experience for manufacturers, presented by Metal Forming Magazine and the Precision Metal Forming Association, this year for the first time as a virtual event. My name is Brad Kuvan. I'm the editorial director of Metal Forming Magazine at PMA, and on behalf of our publisher and vice president of sales, Mike Voland, welcome. Before we get started, I want to thank a few people for helping to make this virtual event happen. First, converting this conference, which was planned to be live in Chicago this week, into a virtual event has taken a lot of work behind the scenes. So a big thanks to our events team, Allie Miller and Caitlin Stratus, and our marketing director, Drew Gutierrez, as well as our graphic designer, Michael Gregg, for putting in hours upon hours of work to put this all together for us. Also want to thank our event sponsors, Komatsu, SensorTrex, and IoTCO for their support, and also thank our event partner, the Control Systems Integrators Association, CSIA, for their support as well. Events like this are certainly great opportunities to learn from the prepared content and the presentations that we've got. And we've got some terrific ones lined up for you this week. The content is organized into sessions, each session with 2 presentations. So at the end of each session, the speakers will conduct live Q&A sessions with you, and then we'll do these as roundtables where you can ask questions of both presenters at the same time and engage in discussions. In addition, thanks to the capabilities of our virtual event platform, you will have the opportunity this week to, just like you would at a live event, network and learn from each other. So you can access a list of attendees in the platform, a list of speakers and sponsor personnel as well, and set virtual appointments to meet with them. And I strongly encourage you to do that. Also, as part of our agenda, we'll conduct a few facilitated online discussion groups where you'll be able to meet with and interact with other attendees as well as the speakers and sponsors. The first of those takes place this afternoon at our virtual happy hour, and I certainly hope you can join us for that. So enough from me, we can go ahead and get started. Our first presenter this morning is Alex Nekritz. Alex is an associate with Plant Moran, and his opening keynote is titled Digital Manufacturing, 3 Important Considerations for Small to Mid-Sized Manufacturers. Alex has nearly 10 years of experience assisting commercial manufacturing, distribution, and industrial service companies and helping them optimize business processes through the use of technology. His key areas of focus include best practices as they relate to enterprise software, continuous process improvement, and material planning. So please welcome Alex.
Everyone taking some time out of your morning to listen to this presentation. There are a lot of intriguing topics through the rest of the sessions, so hopefully you find this helps provide a nice baseline understanding of Industry 4.0 and digital manufacturing as you attend some of the deeper dive sessions through the rest of the event. My agenda today is I want to start off by providing you with a bit of my background. Then we're going to move into some Industry 4.0 history. What is Industry 4.0? Where's it going? Those types of subjects. Then we want to get into who's affected. So there's obviously a lot of stakeholders. We want to understand what it means for them. And, as you're moving through the transition into Industry 4.0. And then finally, how do you get there? What moves can a small to mid-sized manufacturer make to start leveraging this exciting technology? And I'm going to include a couple of case studies there as well. So about me. My name is Alex Nekritz. I am a manager on our IT consulting team here at Plant Moran with a focus in manufacturing and distribution. I graduated from Michigan State University, so obviously go green always. Can't tell you how disappointing it was to have to skip the basketball tournament this year due to COVID. Something that I really enjoy usually, and it's quite a bummer. But some of my other hobbies include golf. That's something that COVID is allowing me to do, and the pandemic definitely got infinitely better once I was able to do that. So that's kind of me outside of work, but from a work perspective, I spent the first part of my career at a tier 1 automotive supplier. We made primarily roof racks for many popular vehicles. I started off there as a packaging engineer, actually graduated with a degree in packaging from State. So started as a packaging engineer and then moved into all kinds of process improvement through ERP. So that would include, barcode scanning, material planning, just kind of new initiatives and helping us further leverage our, at the time, I didn't even know it, our old ERP system. And one of the projects that we got into, we actually used ERP consultants, which brought me to where I'm at today. I am an ERP consultant, and we focus on business process improvement, but we like to, leverage enterprise applications in order to achieve a lot of those goals. So moving into my firm, Plant Moran is one of the largest public accounting and business advisory firms in the nation. We provide a variety of services, including assurance, tax, business consulting, and wealth management. And we really split up and specialize by industry. This helps us bring our skill sets to our clients and help navigate the unique requirements of their specific industries. So just in case there wasn't too much background on Plant Moran, and a little bit more here. As you can see, we're primarily located in the Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois region. We recently merged with a firm out near the Rocky Mountain region, and that's actually what we call it. So that's the Colorado spot there. But overall, we've got 25 offices globally, including China, India, Japan, and Mexico. We're the 11th largest firm in the US, 500 plus consultants. And as I mentioned, I'm on our ITC team, and we've had over 350 technology engagements in the last 5 years. So as we move here, what is Industry 4.0? Kind of my first of the three considerations here. I want to take a bit of a dive into Industry 4.0 and help you understand, how we got there, where we're at today, and then potentially where Industry 4.0 is moving to. So I'm sure many of you have seen something similar to this in the past, kind of explaining the first three industrial revolutions, if you will. So I don't know how much time I'll spend on this, but wanted to give a little bit of a background. So the first industrial revolution, everything used to be made by hand in people's houses, right? So the first industrial revolution was really around the advent of the mechanical loom. It was the first time the machines started replacing manual labor. Production for the first time started moving from homes to factories. That kind of paved the way for what's considered the second industrial revolution, and that's the move to mass production. So, we've kind of shifted from manual to machinery, and now we're mass producing items. We're using electrical power to power the machinery that we're using to produce goods, and really moving into mass production. And it stayed like that for quite a while until the 70s, when we're looking at integrating electronics and technology to the manufacturing environment. This is providing us with even more automation, and it's really helping globalize the economy, which leads us to early 2010s, which is really kind of the beginning of Industry 4.0, when it was really first kind of coined. It's really the idea of taking the electronics and technology within manufacturing and interconnecting everything through the internet. It started being recognized universally almost a decade ago. And, it's really the idea of our physical and digital systems being connected. So as we take a dive into this, my goal is to boil this down to be as simple as possible to help you gain a real understanding of Industry 4.0 before digging into the more granular subjects that are, going to be part of the other sessions throughout this conference. So again, this is meant to be basic, and Industry 4.0 is essentially the collective use of the four technologies on the screen here, right? Cyber physical systems, cloud computing, cognitive computing, and IoT, or the Internet of Things. These technologies can absolutely be broken down more granularly, but thinking about it like this can hopefully help you visualize, what is actually happening. So I'm going to dig into each of these a little bit to help you understand, some examples. What are these systems? What do they do? The first is the cyber physical system. Think of these as your devices. They collect and transact data. Think of a sensor that's on a machine that's keeping track of produced parts and machine parameters and recording all those different data points. Or a mobile device being used by a field service technician who's going out to a customer site and he's pulling up work order information and recording the time he spent on a job and potentially some of the extra parts he used off his parts truck. And that's another cyber physical system that is recording those different data points. So if you can imagine, all of this information needs to be stored somewhere, and that's what takes us into cloud computing. This is where, a quote unquote virtual copy of our physical world is living. Think of, potentially your ERP system or data warehouses. It is, essentially a home for all of this information. And this is the basis for all the analytics, modeling, and all the good stuff that comes out of Industry 4.0, all the knowledge that needs to come from somewhere, and systems leverage all this data that's being recorded in order to do so. So cloud computing is very important because it provides a spot for all that information to live. And then finally, we're going to get into the idea of cognitive computing as kind of the third post here. And that's the process of using all of this collected data to automate activities or processes. A very simple example of cognitive computing is the idea of an automated three-way match within a system. So if I think about it, I'm cutting a PO to my supplier. My guys on the dock are receiving that material, and I'm getting an invoice. To a system, these are three very simple processes that I can train a system or a computer to make a decision. I can say, once I've hit within my threshold on the match, process the payment for this. I have just automated a process that used to be completely manual, and that essentially is Industry 4.0. It is that is a very simple example, but it can get much more broad the more that you create cyber physical systems, and the better access you have to cloud computing and the better technology sitting behind the cognitive computing can help automate more and more advanced tasks and processes. So this is all possible due to IoT, or the Internet of Things. This is the interconnection between these three different posts, if you will. So I tried to create this visual to help you, from a high level, understand that IoT is what's making all of this possible. So that's kind of where, maybe the baseline of the Industry 4.0, but it's been around for nearly a decade, and we're still seeing advancements. So I wanted to talk through potentially what some of those may look like. Now, will preface this by saying that a lot of the technologies at their core have already been invented, but they're going to continue to advance. And the first one I want to talk about is this idea of a digital twin. Think of it as a digital copy of a physical factory, and that's going to be living, in the cloud, right? So we talked about having a virtual copy. Well, a digital twin is essentially just that taken to the next level. A digital twin means I've got so many of my systems and my machinery and my team interconnected that I'm able to build a virtual copy, a painting of my physical world, which allows me to apply analytics and run models, and I can accurately determine implications of changes to my environment without investing the capital in making those changes or making a lot of assumptions. The better digital copy I have, I'm working with real information, not necessarily making a lot of assumptions, or I'm at least limiting the assumptions that I'm making. The next one here is augmented reality. So this is a technology, again, it's already been invented, but it hasn't really grown that much yet. It still has a lot more room for potential. So it's a technology that creates an interactive experience between a user and the information that lives within an environment. This picture here, to me, seems like somebody at a construction site is wearing glasses, and those glasses are providing information to help that person do their job. And I thought that this was a good visual because the way that augmented reality is going to be leveraged potentially on a shop floor is, think about putting on a pair of glasses and seeing machine parameters as you're walking through all your different work centers. You're getting to see throughput and quality metrics and all that just by having augmented reality within that environment. So a lot of very powerful things there. Other spots that it could be leveraged is providing operators with work instructions. Imagine putting on a pair of glasses when you're assembling something, instead of having to flip over to your printed out work instructions. My glasses are cycling through them, and all that's living within my environment. How much more efficient am I using that type of technology? The next technology I want to talk about is 5G. And I'm sure that everyone's heard of 5G, Verizon's talking about it, AT&T's talking about it. Well, it's real. It is going to dramatically increase the speed at which our data moves. And if we think about the cyber physical devices, and those are going to start growing more and more, right? We're going to further connect our factories. That means a lot more data. That means that I'm potentially bogging systems down if I don't have fast enough speed. So 5G is very important in kind of the evolution of Industry 4.0, because it's going to allow this data to move much more efficiently, much faster than is available today. Next up is artificial intelligence. So again, kind of an extension of something we've already talked about, but I wanted to spend a little bit more time on it and have you think of, the more interconnected the machines I have, we're going to be able to learn from the various situations created within a production environment. So the machines themselves, with the artificial intelligence, are able to learn from things that happen. If parameters on a machine were set incorrectly and that affected the yield coming out of that machine, those are inferences that artificial intelligence is going to allow a machine to make, and ultimately help you increase efficiency and lower costs. And then finally here is the idea of cybersecurity. So, again, probably not a new term to a lot of people, but if you think about all this data that we're collecting, I keep talking about it, that needs to be protected. This is going to be one of the most increasingly important aspects that an organization is going to be dealing with as we continue to evolve our working styles. So cybersecurity is something that needs to be taken seriously and is going to be extremely important. Quick break here. So next is, who's affected? Obviously, Industry 4.0 is going to have implications throughout the supply chain. So I wanted to talk about, how the different aspects of the supply chain are affected. So first is your workforce, right? How is this going to affect my business, and what does that look like? So I want to start off by saying, as Industry 4.0 continues to advance, automation and smart machine objects are going to really start replacing lower skilled types of activities. So things that are simple, easily repeatable, those are going to be prime candidates for replacement by some sort of automated process or, robots, things of that nature. What this does mean is that the workforce is going to need people who are more dynamic, able to adapt new skills and engage in continued learning. It's going to be a collaborative work setting in order to develop smart and automated solutions to bring new products to your customers. Likely skill sets are going to be analytical thinking, creativity, complex problem solving, emotional intelligence. We're going to be bringing groups of people together to develop solutions, and there's going to be a ton of tool sets at their disposal. So we're going to have a more and more efficient workforce that is very empowered. They're going to have information available at their fingertips, but with that does, come some implications. Like I mentioned, the lower skill set workers are unfortunately going to start getting replaced more and more often, and the skill sets are going to be, shifting. So next up is your customers, right? Without them, we're not in business anyways. So, think about you as a consumer and what you expect during a business transaction. We expect everything about the products that we're buying, all the information about that available at our fingertips, right? Let's face it, we all use Amazon. We like the Amazon experience. We like being able to sift through pages of information, get to see all of our history. What have we looked at recently? What are the latest prices? So, one of the huge pieces of Industry 4.0 is providing that type of experience to your customers. The more interconnected your systems are, the more or better information you're going to be able to provide to something like a customer portal or an e-commerce platform that is providing real-time and up-to-date information to your customers, giving them that experience that they're getting from a company like an Amazon. Another aspect of this is that many products that are sold in today's world, especially business to business, haven't even been fully designed yet, right? You're quoting products and you're not even quite sure how you're going to manufacture it yet. And in a lot of cases that we typically see anyways, the systems being used for those types of activities are all separate. They're all the information's in silos. So the more that you can connect those systems, you can actually have a collaborative development cycle with your customers where you can integrate 3D printers and get approvals for prototypes. And by the way, when you are able to, or when the customer signs off, you're just flipping a switch. You're flipping it from pre-production to production. You don't have to redundantly enter that information. You have iteratively built it within your interconnected environment. So, really helping provide a better experience to your customers, ultimately with a Industry 4.0 in mind. And then the last piece here is your vendors, right? Who are you getting all your products from? So, having all of this up-to-date information will really allow for instant communication with your vendors, right? To the extent you can notify them of changes or new orders, without having to pick up a phone or send an email, because again, these are fairly simple type processes for a computer to recognize and react to, right? If I enter a purchase order for this customer or for this vendor, and I already have the vendor's email address saved in my system, and I already have, all of their terms set up, so on and so forth, when I say, yep, let's go ahead and send this PO, I shouldn't need to lift another finger, right? I should be able to communicate that directly to my business partner and help them be more efficient as well. So, to take that a step further is you can actually give your vendors limited access within your system. One of the cooler examples I've seen in this space is the idea of predetermining label formats and providing suppliers with serial numbers generated out of your own system. So when the supplier is printing and labeling a product for you, it's including a barcode with a serial number that already means something to your internal system. So when your people on your dock scan to receive it, it already recognizes the purchase order. Back to the AP example, it is already tying together the second leg of that three-way match. So, as you can imagine, very powerful types of automation and workflows here that really allow you to deal with exceptions. And to the extent things are going the way they should, things can be automated. And I mean, I guess the overarching theme here is better information about your manufacturing process is going to help you forecast more accurately, which ultimately helps your vendors be more efficient and keep their prices low. So next question, and I'm sure everyone's wondering it at this point, is how do you get there? You know, this is a lot of information, and it can seem complex. So I want to walk through, you know, the ways we recommend in which you attack problems like this or opportunities like this. So the first idea is having a foundational environment, right? You're going to want to understand and optimize whatever your current environment is. I like to think of your ERP as your foundational system, but it doesn't have to be, right? It can be something else. But the idea here is if you don't have a foundational environment, that's where you need to start. You need to select and implement something that is going to more or less knock off the low-hanging fruit, automate processes that other manufacturers are already automating. If I think about procure to pay or order to cash or plan to produce, you know, these systems really allow you to implement those without a huge lift. You know, so if you don't have something like that, that's going to be your first step. If you have one, but it's on the older side of things, you haven't kept it updated, or it isn't implemented with best practices, it's probably a good idea to start your initiatives with looking at a new system, because again, this is going to be the foundation that you're going to start building off of. If that isn't robust and that isn't already making your life easier, attaching other bolt-ons to it is just going to confuse things ultimately. So we like to think of, you know, having that single source of truth, that fully integrated ERP is probably the lowest barrier to entry to this type of, you know, mindset and shift in maybe how you do things as a business. So this is, you know, ultimately where all your accounting lives, and we would consider it to be the nucleus of your enterprise application environment. So that's kind of priority one in our mind. Next, we want to identify and prioritize. So all the data that's being collected by your foundational and ancillary systems, whether they're integrated or not at this point, can usually help paint a bit of a picture of where you can focus you know, your initiatives on. So this should be able to provide you with, hey, we're not doing super well in this area. What can I do? You got to put some time in, put the research in, and figure out what's out there, right? But you should be able to come up with some high-level initiatives to take care of some of the low-hanging fruit. You should do your best to determine the costs of implementing those types of things and the ultimate benefits, right? You know, what is the ROI on some of these initiatives? It doesn't make sense a lot of times to go down a huge implementation path if you're not going to get that value out of it. So, you know, you want to focus on quick wins that deliver immediate value, because even small improvements are still improvements and they can be built upon. So focus on a few key enhancements, make sure that you've got the capital and the skill sets available to take them through the finish line. After you've prioritized and figured out which initiatives you're going to get down, it's about finding the right resources to help you take it through the finish line. And this is, you know, even though they're technology initiatives, it's imperative the right people are tasked with completing these projects. And this is from the top down. From executive support, you know, somebody at the top that's providing the vision, helping improve funding, breaking down barriers to getting these projects completed. Those are obviously extremely important. You need to have good project managers that are tasked with managing the day-to-day execution of these types of projects. And again, these can be very small or very large, but it's still important to have some of these good project type fundamentals in place, right? These are really projects at the end of the day. So along with the project managers, you're going to need the right doers as well, right? You need the people that know your company. You know, they have a growth mindset. They're willing to go through the research and the tribulations that goes with implementing technology. It's not always the simplest or easiest path to get down. So having good people working on it is obviously very important. And then you got to find the right third-party providers as well, right? Whether that's to supplement internal team because you've got them working on other projects, or maybe their day-to-day is very consuming, so you need supplement help there, or you know, the providers, right? The third-party companies that are bringing the solutions and helping you implement. It's important to do your diligence and figure out that you're working with the right people, because these can be expensive projects, and if they are not executed well, they can end up getting delayed and being even more expensive. So finding the right resources, very important. And then finally, you want to drive meaningful results, right? What's the point of doing these projects if you're not getting the results that you intended? So, you know, want to start off by making sure that you understand that success should be defined prior to starting the project. You should figure out what the goal of the project is prior to going down the path, because that gives you your measuring stick throughout the project. And then you can use good project management fundamentals to make sure you are accomplishing the different things that you set out to accomplish by completing these initiatives. So again, this is high level, I understand that, and I wanted to really just start getting a baseline understanding of, you know, how to start attacking these types of projects, which is going to bring me to a couple case studies where we actually help some clients with some Industry 4.0 initiatives. So the first one here is we were working with a company that was primarily a contract manufacturer. They did a little bit of their own product that they brought directly to market, but primarily contract manufacturer for other businesses. Sales right around 80 million, and they received some investment from private equity fund that was really looking for them to grow that top line revenue. Excuse me. Leadership recognized a need to develop a digital strategy roadmap to support this top line growth. And, you know, they had pretty limited experience in-house with these types of initiatives. And so we ended up getting hired to help put together, you know, a more actionable multi-year plan to help them figure this stuff out. So what we did is we, you know, we came on site to have interviews with their functional leaders and understand the current environment, some of the strategies that they wanted to employ to grow this top line revenue and ultimately decrease costs as well. And, you know, we compiled a digital assessment that really contained kind of a roadmap or a plan of how to accomplish these different initiatives. So if I think back to that chart I just brought out, kind of the, you know, the identify and prioritize portion. So they didn't really know where to start with that area. So this was kind of a focus on helping them identify and prioritize the different initiatives that they should be taking on to help grow into this sort of environment, this Industry 4.0, if you will. This isn't something that you flip a switch and you're there automatically. It is an iterative process, and it needs to have a deliberate plan in order to execute. So the outcome of this particular case study was that they had a playbook of digital initiatives that they were able to focus on, right? It took the guesswork out of it. It was a third-party opinion that really helped them understand the steps they needed to take to move to that type of environment. And then finally is a bit more tactical of a case study here. This was a custom metal fabricator, and they do about 40 million in revenue, and they've got a very diverse customer set, very diverse product portfolio. They're primarily make to order. So they start pretty much every part of their process with a laser cutter. They've got these big giant sheets of steel that they throw in the laser cutter, and there's nesting software within the laser cutter that figures out the right way for the parts to be laid out on that sheet to use as much steel as possible and, you know, have the most efficient cut. So the problem was really that there could be any number of customers, parts, or work orders on a single sheet of steel. Literally hours were spent after one sheet of steel was cut, entering the production for all the different work orders that were on that machine. So, you know, the problem was really, this is the first step in our process, and it's delayed information for the rest of the company because we don't know where production's at. It's very delayed. So the idea was that there's software in the nesting machine, or there's nesting software in the laser cutter. There's an ERP system that has all the manufacturing and customer order information. Why don't we link these? And software, that was able to happen. We were able to get the two systems linked, and the you know, the laser cutter, when it completes a sheet of steel, it reports back to the system, and it does all the applicable transactions in order to report production. And then now you've got real-time, up-to-date information, and the system only spits out exceptions. So if something changed or the transaction didn't go through correctly, so now my manual labor is really just digging through the limited exceptions instead of having to report production on every single machine. So, you know, hopefully those couple examples were helpful, and that, you know, there is no wrong way to start these types of initiatives. It is a start small, make sure you understand it's iterative. You got to build on it. You got to have the foundation, but, you know, small wins are small wins. And, you know, appreciate everyone's time today, and, you know, good luck with your Industry 4.0 endeavors.